Thanks for checking out this video. So here we go. One of my favorite types of videos to make. I'm going to be ranking and, quickly reviewing each of the releases that I got from Vinegar Syndrome for October. And these are in order of the ones that I liked the least to the final one being the one that I liked the most slash thought was the best release. Because there are times where I enjoy a movie more and I put it lower because I just acknowledge that another one is actually a better film, plus, the essays with it, the special features with it, all that stuff is better. So just know that. But anyway, gonna get into it here. The first one, I, I regret purchasing this because this was not one of the included ones for my subscribership. Mindbenders. I did not like this release. This may be their worst release this year. It's either this or Bloodbath in the House of Death. This is pretty bad. So based off the trailer, what I thought is, oh, it's going to be like fun, ridiculous, goofy ridiculousness, sci-fi looking, obviously. A la like Surf 2 or Pandemonium or something like that, which I really enjoy those. But the story on this one is it's basically at a school, it's at a high school where the principal meets up with this scientist dude who actually ends up being from space, who is wanting to conduct these experiments on the students about like regulating their emotions through music. But things aren't going well with that because some students find out about it and then they are trying to disrupt it. So, yeah. But it's a real, there isn't a whole lot of story to it, and you can tell that. There is so much filler in this film. And I think this is the film that in the special features they were saying it was like initially just made to be a tax shelter, which, you could see that because there isn't a whole lot of substance to it. The acting is actually not bad. The acting's not as bad as I thought it would be. It does at times border on kind of like a so bad it's good type acting, but it's just so slowly paced and there's so much filler in it that's just not fun or funny or engaging in any way. They focus on like all the most mundane stuff with these high schoolers instead of doing more interesting, wacky, fun things that they could have been doing. There are some enjoyable scenes in there, but just not much. I did not care for this one at all. Plus, the score is extremely annoying. I hated the score of this. It was like grating. It was like nails on a chalkboard almost. So, as far as the special features go with this one, there is a commentary track with the director and writer slash actor for it. There's a commentary track with some people from Cinematic Void podcast. I don't do the commentary tracks just because it would take me way too long to go through those. Then they had something, High Tension High, the making of Mindbenders. It was a making of documentary with a bunch of people involved with it, which that was actually way more entertaining than the movie itself, to be honest. And then there's a poster in it. So not a whole lot as far as special features go with this one, and just not a great film. So that's why it's my last place. What number released? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. My number 7. So this was my number 7. Was not a big fan. Now getting into my number 6, also wasn't a big fan in this one, might not read this, and this was another one that I had to purchase in addition to getting my subscriber stuff. Dial D for Demons. Okay, so the story behind this one, it's basically about a friends who are kind of looking to get away from the everyday hustle and bustle of life. Is a Hong Kong film. They go to this island for a vacation that they think looks like a lot of fun. But then they start getting like one of them starts getting these visions of people who killed themselves by inhaling the fumes of burning charcoal, which is kind of a weird thing. And then they all start getting these messages on their beepers, and then all this kind of supernatural stuff ends up starting up. So it sounds kind of fun, sounds kind of interesting. It's not. It's very slow. Much like Mindbenders, it focuses so much on just like really pointless, stupid dialogue, and there's so much time devoted to that, and the characters are just very uninteresting for the most part, that you're just bored. It's very boring. Yes, it gets more interesting towards the end of the film, which is why I put this above the Mindbenders film, but there's not a whole lot of meat on the bones with this one. There's some imagery in there that's kind of reminiscent of like J-horror. So they were kind of like trying to channel a little bit of that. But anyway, special features with this one. There is commentary track with people from Podcast on Fire Network. Not one of those movies, an interview with actor Terrence Yin, which that was an interesting interview. I did really like that one. The Bloody Legacy of Billy Tang, a video essay by Sam Deegan. That was great. That was the best special feature on here. Whenever Sam Deegan's doing something, whether it's a written essay or a video essay, great. Love their written essays, love their video essays. So that was another reason that this got bumped up above Mindbenders, is because that special feature. That video essay was great. Plus that interview on here was pretty good too. So Dial D for Demons is my number 6. So my number 5, one that I didn't love it, but I didn't hate it at the same time. And first time on Blu-ray, slasher The Ghost Dance. So this one, the story with this is that there's some people doing some excavating out in the desert. They come across what they believe are the remains of a Native American who some say was like a cult leader, basically. And these people get warned about taking the body, but of course they're stupid. So they take the body back to a museum to kind of, fully exhume it and just actually look into it and try and identify it and everything. And then things start happening. It's called The Ghost Dance. There is a ghostly aspect to it. And it also, Ghost Dance refers to something else in the film, but it's an interesting idea. And I think in one of the special features, one of the guys involved, I think he was the director. I think actually writer director maybe. Let me check that real quick just to verify. Yes, co-writer and director Peter Buffa. He actually said this is not a movie that he himself would do nowadays. That he was just like, I wasn't thinking in certain ways back when I made this film. There wasn't, this societal sensibility about, not taking this type of material and exploiting it in a sense. So, like, he was acknowledging, like, not a great idea, definitely wouldn't do it today. But he also talks about the film. So, the kills aren't great, but the story is kind of intriguing, and there are some kind of cool scenes, and the acting is kind of fun. So, it's a pretty in-the-middle film. It is very slow, though. And people who got interviewed in the special features for this, actually, a lot of them said that. They all were just like, oh, the pacing's bad. It's just too slow. It's too slow. So when they're acknowledging it, that's a problem. So I didn't love this one. I could see an instance of rewatching it if, maybe I had a friend over who hasn't seen it before and they were interested in it. So it was okay-ish. So in addition to having that interview called Looking into the Past with their co-writer-director Peter Buffa, it had This Is Great Stuff, an interview with co-writer-producer Robert M. Sutton, which was good, and Dances with Ghosts, which was an interview with the stunt coordinator, Don Shanks. So Don Shanks actually ended up playing the killer ghost in this as well, and that interview is very interesting from a stunt standpoint of what you learn there and how things, weren't necessarily the safest on the set, but also just from the acting standpoint of doing that role. So it was a really good special feature. So there are nice special features on here. So The Ghost Dance, I don't know, maybe you want to check it out, maybe you don't. If you're just like 100% into slashers and you just want to see every slasher, go ahead and get it. If you don't really care that much, I probably wouldn't, but just throwing it out there. So that was my number 6. So wait a minute. My number 5, sorry. Oh my gosh, it's one of those days, people. Yeah, so that was my number 5. So coming into number 4 was their cinematograph release, which was Shanks, which this one I enjoyed, but also the pacing wasn't the best, and it is just weird. It's a weird story. So this is a film done by William Castle, and a lot of people say this is kind of his most obscure film that a lot of people don't talk about. It stars Marcel Marceau, yes, famed mime Marcel Marceau, who obviously does not speak in this film. And he is a deaf-mute puppeteer. He's living with his sister and brother-in-law who are very abusive to him. The brother-in-law is actually drunk as well, and he just gets treated horribly. So he ends up getting this job with this scientist in this mansion who teaches him about reanimating the bodies of animals, basically, which there's some animal cruelty in this, so people do need to know about that. So he uses electricity for it. So basically, long story short, this guy becomes his mentor. The mentor ends up passing away, and he decides to try to resurrect him because he's so upset about it with the same methods he was taught on the animals. So this leads to things starting to go downhill, and then other people get killed, and then more people are being reanimated, and it gets very like ridiculous and over the top, but at the same time it feels like this kind of like messed up fairy tale in a way, because there's also this little girl who has a relationship with Marcel Marceau's character Shanks, which is a very questionable relationship, and they do even comment on that in some of the written essays that they have in here. But yeah, it's an interesting film. I don't know if it's one I need to see again. Some of it's kind of funny actually, but it is definitely like kind of like weird dark. But I'm glad I've seen it. But this is my number 4. Special features. There is new interview with audio commentary with film historians Kim Newman and Barry Forshaw. Interview with producer Stephen North. No Words for the Dead, reanimating William Castle, visual language and the path to Shanks, which is a video essay by Daniel Kremer, which was very good, very interesting because it goes kind of deep into like the William Castle history, like his filmography. Marcel Marceau on Shanks, actually an old interview with Marcel Marceau about this film, which was very interesting to get his take on it. And then these written essays that they always put in their cinematograph releases. There's one that is Our Play is Played Out, William Castle, Marcel Marceau, and Shanks. That one was a good one. All of these were quite good. I didn't find a single bad essay in here. Very enlightening as well. It kind of like, all the essays kind of go a little bit further into kind of what was potentially trying to be said within the film. And then there's one that's Puppets Are Nicer, William Castle Shanks, and then Master of Puppets by Alexandra Heller Nicholas. I know a lot of people look for her essays, and I do believe this was my favorite essay of all the essays in there was hers. But yeah, a really good release, a lot of really great special features with it, and a kind of interesting film. So that's why I put it as my number 4. So there you have that. Real quick, pause for horror hydration. My throat gets dry now. Okay, so moving on to number 3. This was actually not that bad. I know a lot of people have been rolling their eyes that they've done 2 of these box sets this year, but Forgotten Gialli Volume 7. I actually like this one quite a bit. This is their 80s edition Giallo films. 3 of the films in here. It's Mystere, Obsession, A Taste for Fear, and Sweets from a Stranger. So this is not my favorite of the Forgotten Gialli. I have all of them. My favorite is 6, actually. Love that one. That one is great. And then 3 is my runner-up there. But this one is good, actually. I know a lot of people are like, oh, 80s Giallo is way past its prime at that point. I'm sure it's not that great. It's interesting. So let me go over, I'll just pull them out, and that way I can give you a visual while I go over each one. So the first one was Mystere, which is about a woman who is a high-end sex worker who ends up kind of getting involved in some intrigue because some of her clients are involved in kind of state-level espionage type stuff. And one of her friends ends up stealing a lighter from one of their clients, and then she ends up getting killed, as does the person who owned the lighter. And then it's kind of like this trail of bodies thing. And as you can see on there, there's a killer who has a knife that comes out of a cane, which is cool. Black Glove Killer, clearly a Giallo film. It felt to me while I was watching, I'm like, this feels a lot like James Bond. Well, not a lot, like a little bit like James Bond. And then I was like, oh, I guess maybe part of it is the fact that the actress in it, who is Carol Bouquet, was in the James Bond film For Your Eyes Only, which is one of my favorite James Bond films. So I was like, oh, okay. But then on the special features, there was the interview with, who was it? Writer Enrico Vanzina. No, Greg Snegoff. No, yeah, it was the writer. Sorry, Enrico Vanzina, who said that they intentionally wanted it to feel like James Bond because they were kind of like a fan of those films and had done some other films kind of like that. So story-wise, it's pretty intriguing. Pacing issues with it wasn't my favorite, but it's not bad. It's actually a pretty solid story, some pretty okay kills. I thought it was okay. I mean, if you're big into Giallo, you'd probably definitely want to check this one out. If you don't really care about Giallo, it's probably not for you. But this one had commentary track with film historians Eugenio Ercolani, Nathaniel Thompson, and Troy Howarth. Two Brothers for a Mystere, interview with Enrico Vanzina. An American in Rome, interview with actor Greg Snegoff. And The House of Mystere, an interview with production designer Paola Comencini. And all the special features were pretty good. Always interesting to hear from people involved with the films. Then the next film was Obsession, A Taste for Fear. And this one is the horniest of all these films. I mean, Giallo films always have nudity and they're always like sexually driven. But this one is like straight up horny all the time. Plenty of shots of bush, lots of boobs. It is very light on the story. Let's just say that. They also made this very weird choice to make it futuristic, which one of my favorite things actually about this film is all these kind of like futuristic set design choices they made and the futuristic technology they chose to have in this film. So the feel and the look of it is what I like most about this film. Story-wise, it's about a woman who, takes erotic photos, and then all of a sudden, all of her people who she's taking photos of end up getting killed. And she is receiving pictures of them dead. And they're trying to figure out who the killer is. So, Giallo, So the story's not great at all. The kills aren't very good either. But the feel of it, the look of it, the really odd choices of it, some of the bad acting, it's fun. This is a kind of a good, so bad it's good Giallo film, in my opinion. So I did enjoy it for that reason. So on this commentary track with film historians Eugenio Ercolani and Nathaniel Thompson, this used to be the future, an interview with writer-director Piccio Raffanini. That was a good one. Supervising the Obsession, an interview with production supervisor Luciano Lucci. A Taste for Sense, an interview with composer Gabriel Ducros, which reminds me, I really dug the score for this film. And Cinema Killed the Video star, a video essay by Rachel Nisbet. Love the video essays. That was the best special feature on here, in my opinion. Quite liked it. So this is fun. I mean, not a good film, but so bad it's a good film. And then the last one was actually the one I ended up liking the most out of all of these, which was Sweets from a Stranger. So this is about a black glove killer, obviously, which they actually go back to the roots of Giallo with, just a straight razor that people are being killed with, and out killing sex workers. But the interesting take on this, because all of that sounds very normal, like every Giallo you've ever kind of watched pretty much, or a lot of them. But it takes the main characters they focus on are the sex workers. And they believe that the police or the inspector are not going to do a good enough job. They're not going to catch this person who is out killing them. And they decide to take it into their own hands and basically do their own investigation, try and lure the person in and take them on. And it's such an interesting, fresh take for Giallo for me that I was just so enthralled with it. Is it kind of slow? Yes. The pacing is not great with it, but the characters are super interesting. I think the twist at the end is really great of who's the killer. I really enjoyed that. I didn't actually see that coming. And it's just a different take on things, and it really works. The story is great. So I really did enjoy this one, and I didn't really expect to be that into any of these. But yeah, Sweets from a Stranger. This is the banger in the group. This has commentary track with film historians Eugenio Ercolani and Troy Howarth. Cruising for Sweets, an interview with writer-director Franco Ferrini, which the Franco Ferrini interviews, whether it's, a special feature on this one or any of the other ones that they get him for, always very enlightening. Love his stuff. Sweets Maker, an interview with producer Claudio Bonavento, and Kill Me With Your Smila, an interview with composer Umberto Smila. Didn't really like that special feature because there was a lot of talking about that individual's career just in scoring films, and I just mainly just wanted to hear about this film when it comes to the score, but that's just me. But anyway, this box set, pretty good. You know, as you get to the seventh of these box set releases, you would think it's starting to like really go downhill. Not really, in my opinion. At least in my opinion. I know some other people might say otherwise, but all right, now we're getting to the final two. If you're keeping track, you know what they are. So my number two was very excited when they announced that this would be released, and I was very excited to watch again because I really do enjoy this film. It is Giallo-esque, is what I would say. It certainly cannot be Giallo because it's not from Italy. It is from Hong Kong. It's a Hong Kong Cat 3 film called Corpse Mania. This one's a 4K, which, by the way, Shanks was also a 4K. The other are Blu-ray. But this one's a 4K, and it looks phenomenal. I mean, first of all, this film is shot extremely well. It looks gorgeous. There are some kind of like martial arts aspects to it as well that are a lot of fun. Not a ton, though, but some. So this one is basically about it's like old school China, like during one of the dynasties, and they're in Hong Kong, and there's a brothel that is having its girls killed. Sound familiar? Sounds a lot like Sweets from a Stranger, but the brothel is having its girls killed, and then the bodies are being defiled afterwards. So they start to suspect a guy who had just been released from jail for doing that to bodies, and they're going after him. They're trying to find him. Meanwhile, you're like, is that actually who that is? Is it not who it is? Because you never see their face. You know, that's why it's very Giallo-esque. There are some really good kills in this. The story is compelling. It's shot extremely well. The lighting is very interesting and keeps things looking great. And there are some really great twists at the end of this. It gets pretty wild at the end. I really adore this film. I think it's wonderful. I think everyone should see it. It's so good. As far as special features go, we have a commentary track with Ming Beaver Quay, son of director Chi Hung Quay and filmmaker Alan Chu, and a commentary track with film historian Sam Deegan. Oh man, I should watch that with that commentary track if it's Sam Deegan. Also, statistics with the producer, an interview with producer Lawrence Wong, video interview with cinematographer Lee San Yip, and a video interview with Ming Beaver Quay, son of the director Chi Hung Quay. And then Chi Hung Quay, Shaw Brothers, Master of Horror, a video essay by film historian and author Grady Hendrix. And then there was also a 28-page booklet in here that had, I think it was just one essay. Let me look real quick. I can tell you what it was. I think it was just one essay. Oh, no, it wasn't. Quay Chi Hung, a man of all genres. That goes really deep into Quay Chung's career, especially doing like Cat 3 and doing horror stuff, which is really cool. So it was very interesting to learn about that individual and made me want to watch some more of the films. Oh, and actually I was right. It is only one essay, so it's a longer essay, but it's really good, as are pretty much all of the essays that Vinegar Syndrome puts out. They had a pretty bad essay, unfortunately, with their Navy SEALs release. But other than that, all the essays I've read are really good. But yeah, Corpse Mania. High recommend. Love this one. Then that leads us to our number one. And I know there were a lot of people who were very upset that they were getting this as part of their subscription, which, to remind you, Corpse Mania was part of my subscription. So was Forgotten Gialli box set. So the subscription ones, the ones I didn't additionally purchase, were the best ones for October. Go figure. So it's a good value. So The Tenant is my number one. The Roman Polanski film, The Tenant. However you feel about who Roman Polanski is, was, whatever, I am not taking that into account when I'm talking about this release. This is an amazing release. It is a phenomenal movie. There are really great special features. The packaging is super cool, obviously. And there's a great essay book in here with very enlightening, very wonderfully written essays. So this one just hits, it checks all the boxes for being a great one. So the story on this film, The Tenant, main character played by Roman Polanski, he directs it. It looks phenomenal because Polanski was just known for being a great director, have great influence on the cinematographers. So it's about a guy in Paris who is trying to find an apartment, and he finds this apartment that has just become open, that has a wonderful view, and it's in a very nice area. And the reason that it's available is that the previous tenant tried to kill herself by jumping from her window. So he ends up taking the apartment, and then he's intrigued by this individual. So at first he goes to visit her in the hospital, where all you can see of this individual is one eye and their mouth, because they're wrapped, like plastered up the rest of their body because they broke like everything. So he mainly wanted to check to see, does it look like this person's going to make it, and am I then going to have to give up my apartment? But then it starts to get into his brain, and he starts thinking, what was actually going on here? Why would this person try to kill himself? Did this person actually try to kill himself, or was there something else going on? Meanwhile, he's having all these weird interactions with the people who are other tenants in that building, and he starts to become like, did something happen with these tenants? Is there more to the story in essence? So that's what's going on with the story. It's very well written. It's very psychological, and the ending is quite good. It's very well executed. It was based off a book. There are a lot of differences apparently between the book and this. It's talked about a lot in the written essays in this. But it is a very well done film. It's very well acted, great story, great pacing, all that stuff. So it's very easy to make this the -- 1 of October. So let me go ahead and tell you about special features. Commentary track by film historians Troy Haworth and Nathaniel Thompson. Paranoid in Paris, an interview with co-writer, director, and actor Roman Polanski. Yes, they're on there, but this is the thing. Very enlightening stuff in that interview, I will say. Waiting for the Tenant, an interview with actor Andre Penverne. Room to Let, author and film historian Stephen Thrower on The Tenant. Always great when you're hearing from Stephen Thrower. Does a great job. The Invisible Performer, an interview with assistant cameraman Francois Cantone. Keeping Continuity, an interview with script supervisor Sylvette Baudreau, which that was very enlightening because you don't usually hear from the script continuity people. So to kind of understand their job a little bit more, and also understand what things weren't meeting continuity with this film, was very cool. And then audio interview with co-writer Roland Topper by journalist Frederick Levy, and audio interview with co-writer Gerard Brock by journalist Frederick Levy, and then a visit to the locations of Tenant. The audio interviews were very interesting, especially with Frederick Levy, Roland Topper, who wrote the book that it was based off of, because they went into kind of what was different between them and what they wish had stayed in there. But they still said that they felt like The Tenant was still a great film, even though it diverged a lot from the book. So really enjoyed that. And then we have the essay booklet, which I'm always excited about reading these, and it was great. The first one is The Two Trolkowskis, which is the last name of the main character in the film. And these aren't like super long essays either. Then there is A Dollhouse for Trolkowski, Queer Anxieties in the Tenant. So this one was very interesting because it's definitely from a perspective that's not my own, because of myself not being queer, but having anxiety. But it's always interesting when they have these types of essays, because it opens my mind a little more to a different perspective, a different way in which to view this film, which I think is very interesting. And it's one of those things where it's like the film was most likely not intended to be interpreted that way when it was made, but films change over time. Like, context of how people see things with film just changes over time, because film experiences are very personal. That's one of the reasons that John Carpenter always says that he never tells people what the meaning was behind his films, because everyone should be able to experience it how they want to themselves and interpret it how they want to. And then the last one is change of address POV in The Tenant. Kind of interesting, but this was a very dry, kind of boring essay talking more about like technical aspects of how it was shot and what that meant to the story. I wasn't big on that one, but it was well, I mean, it was well done. It was just the material was like kind of boring and dry for me. But yeah, my number one, obviously, The Tenant. I'm sure a lot of people probably could have guessed that one based off a lot of people knowing like what people have said before about how good The Tenant is. But anyway, those are my short reviews. This has been a long video. Those are my short reviews. Those are my rankings. Would love to hear your thoughts on these films. And please, I put a lot into these videos, so please pay me back by subscribing to my channel. I appreciate that, putting the thumbs up on videos like this. Also, if you do want to pitch in monetarily, I do have super thanks enabled on the channel, so you can give me like a one-time donation, and even if you want to do $1 or something, or you can also join a membership, which there will be a link in the description to check out how much you would end up paying, a small fee each month for what perks you would end up getting with the channel. And yeah, you know, there's also word of mouth. I never talk about that, but if you are interested in my channel and what I'm doing, and you know anyone else who might be, just let them know. But regardless, thank you everyone for taking your time to watch this, and until next time, keep it brutal.